everybody, how are you doing today? Hope y'all are having a fantastic week. And I got something particularly special for you today. But before we get started on that, I have a bit of a sad announcement to make. The ongoing Forgotten Beauties of Comics series, as of today, is being retired. There's just really no way around it. People have just lost interest in watching them. The viewership has nosedived significantly. And while those videos don't really take that long to make and it isn't that much of a time sink, especially not as much as the survival challenges, the return on investment just isn't really worth it anymore. So a moment of silence for these sweet, sweet princesses. But we gotta move on. The world is our ocean and there are bigger and brighter things on the horizon. Like, for instance, this video right here that you're currently watching. So for today's challenge, this is not gonna be something as simple as us just taking all the characters, throwing them in the One Piece world and saying, could you just fight the whole universe? No, that's boring and that would never happen. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take a bunch of young heroes kind of around the same age that someone like Luffy or the rest of the supernovas from One Piece would be before they went on their adventure, and said, all right, we're going to start them off in the East Blue and they have to make their way through the entire Grand Line and see just how far they would get. Would they be able to become the Pirate King? Would they be able to find the One Piece and dominate the new world to become the most important person in the entire One Piece universe? We're not only going to take strength into account, but also character and how their character would influence their decisions throughout the One Piece world. They'll be starting their adventure basically around the same time Luffy is. By the time they should get to Sabati Archipelago, they will also be supernovas starting within their first year. That's basically the time frame that we're looking at. But that's enough wasting your time. Let's get started. All right, so how does one go about describing the One Piece universe to a person that doesn't know shit about One Piece? So you take pirates, right? But then they're not pirates. And then you put them in a shonen universe with all of the general shonen tropes. And then you throw in like 5 to 10% Looney Tunes. If you don't know shit about One Piece, you might not be that impressed. But that is an insanely accurate description of this series. Basically, the world of One Piece follows this character named Monkey D. Luffy as he wants to become king of the pirates. So he gets in a boat and then he leaves his hometown, and the whole idea is that he has to go and find the One Piece, which was left by the previous king of the pirates, and anyone who finds that treasure becomes the new king of the pirates. And when he died and he left his treasure behind, it kicked off the pirate era, and now everyone is just obsessed with being pirates and becoming the pirate king. It's this whole thing. Some pirates are super fucked up and they do awful things like crucify people and enslave people and all kinds of horrible shit like that. And then you have pirates like Monkey D. Luffy that's not a pirate at all. He's just an explorer. In fact, throughout the entire series, he's had one moment of pirating, and it was played for laughs. There's really not even any reason that he should be a criminal or hunted by the world government. It's really just because he calls himself a pirate, but he's not. And there's actually a significant number of pirates who are like this who aren't really pirates. They just call themselves that. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I know this is not the most exciting section I've ever done in a video. I don't seem like my energetic self, but that is because I have filmed this 3 times because some fucking asshole won't stop hammering and fucking up my goddamn video. No. Fuck you. Fuck you and your fucking whore mother. I bet you like hammering her too, don't you, you motherfucker? The story takes place on a completely different planet than Earth, although we don't know the name of the planet, and the planet is set up in a very tournament-like way. Basically, there's 4 oceans, the North, South, East, and West Blue, and these are the weakest oceans, like, ever. They suck. And then in the middle of the planet is this thing called the Grand Line, which can only be accessed at a certain point. You get into it, and you can only go in one direction, and you go all the way around the planet, go from island to island to island, dealing with all the fucked up shit that's there. And once you get all the way to the end of the Grand Line, somewhere in that area is the One Piece, but no one's ever actually been able to make it all the way to the end where Raftel is. Characters in the One Piece world have a much higher threshold of just how powerful they can become, as regular humans can literally chuck mountains at people, and they can come to that level of power through just sheer training and force of will. On top of that, there are these things called devil fruits, where if you eat a devil fruit, you get a special crazy ass power, but you also get cursed to the point that you can't swim, and anytime you go into any sort of salt water, you'll lose all your strength, sink, and drown. Which obviously in a world like One Piece, which is just made up of a bunch of scattered islands and is way way more water than it is land, like even more so than the planet Earth. This is a pretty bad thing. The devil fruits have 3 classifications. They have zoan types, which basically allow you to turn into some sort of animal-human hybrid. Well, okay, you can turn into an animal-human hybrid, or you can just be an animal. You have 3 forms. And what the series classifies as animal is pretty fucking open to interpretation. Like, yeah, some of the zoans can just turn into like dogs and shit, and dog-person hybrids, but a lot of other ones can turn into like pterodactyls. Some people can turn into like phoenixes and other mythical creatures. There's even a character that is a zoan fruit that allows him to turn into Buddha, like a god. So it's kind of all over the place. It's basically just the transformation devil fruit. Then you have Logia, which gives you the superpower over some form of element. Again, element is used rather loosely. Basically, you can just transform into something and you get the properties of that thing. Sometimes it's pretty simple, like you turn into fire or smoke or gas or something like that. But sometimes it gets a little more conceptual. Like there's one character that can turn into the very embodiment of a swamp, like not mud or mucky water, but a literal swamp. And he basically has like this pocket dimension inside of him where anything that he touches and absorbs into himself is just lost forever until he wants to spit it out. And there's no real limit ever shown to just how much he can suck into himself. It's literally just a pocket dimension. I don't know what that has to do with the swamp, but yes, much like the zoan fruits, the powers that exist within the Logia category are sort of just all over the place. The only thing that pretty much all Logias have in common is that they can actually transform into their element, and you can't actually physically touch them or harm them in any way without some sort of technique that allows you to touch an element and hurt it. If you have a fire Logia fruit, you can literally turn into fire. There's a character with a magma Logia fruit and an ice Logia fruit and a light Logia fruit, and they can all turn into those things, and hitting them does absolutely nothing. It just goes right through them and they're fine. This is really the main power of a Logia and what makes them so good. If 2 people eat a devil fruit, one eats a Logia and one eats a zoan, the Logia is going to win right out the gate. There's a lot of training and mastering a technique called Haki that exists within the series. You can eventually overcome and defeat Logia users, but right out the gate, their powers are just usually far superior than the other 2 types. And the last type is Paramecia, which is basically just everything else. It's the miscellaneous category. It's just any superpower that isn't the other 2. And these powers vary wildly. Sometimes they're pretty simple stuff, and sometimes they're hacksy as fuck. When it comes to Paramecia devil fruits, they're the most grab baggy of them all. If you get a zoan or if you get a Logia, you're going to be stronger than you were when you ate them. If you get a Paramecia, it's possible to just straight up get a useless fucking devil fruit that is just a worthless power that you can't do anything with. But at the same time, many of the Paramecia fruits are godly overpowered, like Whitebeard's, who has the Tremor fruit, who can literally just send vibrations through anything he wants to create tremors in the air, in the water, in the ground. He literally has the power to just explode the entire planet if he wants to. In the One Piece series, the devil fruits make up 1/2 of the power system of the universe. The other half of the power system of the universe is Haki, of which there are also 3 types. Anybody can train and learn and master 2 of them. That is Armament Haki and Observation Haki. Armament Haki allows you to wrap an armor around yourself and essentially increase your attack damage significantly or protect yourself from attacks. This sounds pretty simple, but Haki is a system of power that is actually pretty loose with its own rules, like pretty much every power that exists in One Piece. And it actually allows you to do a lot of different cool stuff. Like eventually you can start doing force pushes and shit, and really just how you train it depends on what you can use it for. But at its very base, it's just like an armor. In its most simple description, it vastly increases your attack and defense. It also allows you to harm Logia users who usually are immune to any form of damage. If you wrap your fist in Haki and punch a Logia user, you will hit them, their real body. You won't just go through the fucking ice or sand that they turn into. This makes Armament Haki an absolute must for the higher tier fights in the series, because when you come across Logia users, if you don't have Armament Haki, there's literally nothing you can do to a vast majority of these characters. The second ability that anyone can use is Observation Haki, and this is basically future sight. It allows you to predict things, know things that you shouldn't know. Certain characters who mastered enough could see pretty decently far into the future. It's stated in the series that in order to fight characters who are superior to light speed, observation hockey is essentially a must, because knowing where they're going to be before they're there is really the only way that you could possibly hope to counter them. This is sort of shit on in the series because you can argue that there are several characters that are faster than light, like a lot faster than light, and you can even argue that Luffy has defended against light speed attacks before he ever had observation hockey, but that's something we'll get into later in the video. Don't worry about that. The last form of hockey, which not everybody can train in, and it is something that you can only acquire if you have an insanely god level willpower, which is only really acquired through just you. Like, you can't train to raise your willpower. It's just something you either have or you don't. And this is called Conqueror's Hockey. And it's been used in a couple of different ways, but for the most part, you can use your willpower to overpower the will of others and essentially make them faint in your presence. Some characters can actually use it to kill people. It is just this general pulse of willpower energy that just knocks out everybody. You basically stack your will up against the will of the person you're going up against, and if your will is superior to theirs, they fucking pass out and they can't fight anymore. Some characters have such high godly levels of willpower that they can overpower the wills of literally thousands to tens of thousands to even hundreds of thousands of people with a single hockey pulse. It's like throwing a human nuke onto the battlefield a lot of the time. Luffy, for instance, in his first use of Conqueror's Hockey after being trained in it, was able to knock out 50,000 people with a single pulse. Half of the army that they were currently fighting just knocked out with a single one. Why he didn't just do it again and knock out the other half, I don't know, because then we wouldn't have a fight. But, you know, I get it. Luffy just wanted to fight some people. He didn't want to make it too easy. You have certain characters that really rely on devil fruit shit. You have certain characters that really rely on hockey shit. By the time you get to the end of the series, it's pretty much all about hockey, and the devil fruits aren't nearly as important. Like, hockey kind of takes a front seat in the action, with devil fruits kind of being like a side thing that makes fight sort of interesting. But hockey really becomes a must in order to fight or deal with pretty much anybody. So that's the basic power system of the universe. What exactly are our characters going to face when they go along in their adventure through the Grand Line? And there's a lot. Not only are they going to have to face a ton of different bounty hunters if they're becoming pirates, they're also going to have to face other pirates of various power levels and powers in general, like the devil fruits and hockey. But they'll also have the world government to contend with, who are going to put bounties on their head based on their crimes and hunt them throughout their entire journey. The world government is made of several different ranks of various levels of powered individuals, but some of the most powerful beings in the entire One Piece universe exist within the world government, with the absolute strongest being the admirals and the fleet admiral, who are strong enough to take on Yonkos, who I'll get into in a second. Under the world government are also the Shichibukai, who are essentially 9 pirate lords, some of the strongest pirates in the universe, who act as privateers under the world government, who can basically do all the fucked up shit that pirates do, but they can do it for the world government. And as a trade-off to working for the world government, all of their crimes basically get a pass. They get pardoned. These characters can pretty much do whatever they want to do without any fear of repercussions from the world government. And then, even above the world government, once you get to the New World, which is the last half of the Grand Line, you run into the Yonko, which are 4 pirate kings that are the most powerful beings in the entire One Piece world. Each of these pirate kings have entire massive fleets and armies under them that serve them and essentially run the entirety of the New World. Each one of them are so ungodly powerful as a force that just one Yonko and his entire army can take on the entirety of the world government by themselves. Due to there being 4 of these motherfuckers out there with 4 armies, each of which capable of taking on the world government really can't do anything to them. And these 4 insanely powerful individuals are the ones who are the closest currently at becoming the Pirate King, but still have not found the One Piece. And that is a general, quick-ish description of the One Piece world. There is way more to talk about, but I'm only going to bring it up as it is necessary for this particular video, because honestly, I could make an hour-long video just talking about One Piece lore. It's a series that has, what, 1,100 chapters now? Something like that? It's a lot. The series has been going on for a long fucking time. And despite Oda saying that it's almost over and it's in its last saga, I mean, he's been saying it would be over in 5 years, like 20 years ago. He's been saying shit like this for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if the last saga lasted for another 8-9 years, which is almost half as long as this motherfucker has been hammering. How long is that goddamn nail? First up on the chopping block, we have Kestis from Star Wars, specifically the Jedi games. And I think I probably know what you're thinking. Like, why the fuck would you use Kestis? It's the Star Wars universe. There are way better characters to use. Why not Darth Vader? Why not Luke Skywalker? Why not Darth Revan? Why the fuck Cal? And really, 3 reasons. One being that it fits the theme more. I'm doing young heroes, like characters who are of age to go on their pirating adventure, late teens, early 20s, that kind of thing. Most of the Star Wars characters are considerably older. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Revan, these are all older characters. They're not really the right age to put through this scenario. 2, Kestis has a personality that would make it more interesting to see him go through this adventure than a lot of the other Star Wars characters. For instance, if I chose a young Luke Skywalker, I'm not going to say he's a bad character or a boring character, but he's a pretty by-the-numbers character. He's your generic hero's journey type character. You already know what decisions he's going to make when he goes on the adventure. In fact, he's not very likely to even become a pirate in the first place. He'd probably join the Marines at first. He's a symbol of hope and peace and heroicness and all that different kind of stuff, and it just wouldn't make for the most interesting talking points in this conversation. And 3, because nobody wants to fucking see Rey Palpatine in this video. So those narrowed it down pretty fucking quick. Now, I probably could have used Anakin Skywalker when he was younger, but that's basically just asking me to use Darth Vader before he was cool. Like, remember when he was a whiny bitch complaining about sand and being held back by Obi-Wan and killing sand raiders and crying about his mom? Yeah, let's use that guy. No, I don't wanna. So a little bit about Kestis. Cal was a young Jedi about 13 years old during Order 66. If you don't know what Order 66 is, I don't know what the fuck you're watching this video for. I'm not explaining it. It was a whole thing about all the Jedi getting slaughtered by the Empire. Point is, he survived the slaughter and left and went into hiding for several years up until he was about age 18 and the Empire tracked him down. Then he went on the run and he went through this whole character development thing where he had to re-up his Jedi-ness and get over his survivor's guilt and become the man that he was always meant to be. I made a whole Kestis character analysis video if you want a more detailed analysis, but for now I'm just giving you a very basic rundown. Anyway, all that happened, he became the hero, and then in Jedi Survivor, 5 years passed, and that person that he became at the end of Jedi Fallen Order, that person who was worthy of the name of Jedi, that person's gone. By this point, he has lost all hope in the future of the Jedi, and he has just resigned himself to believe that the Empire has already won, and there's really nothing they can do. So he's basically on a one-man suicide mission to cause as much damage and death to the Empire as humanly possible, regardless of what damage it causes or who dies from it. He doesn't really care. He's sort of a hopeless character, an inverse of the Luke Skywalker character. At this point in the story, he is accurately labeled as a terrorist by the Empire due to his many kind of fucked up crimes for a Jedi, like political assassinations, sabotage, destroying military bases. Like, he's just been fucking them up for 5 years straight on the run and becomes one of the most wanted Jedi in the entire galaxy over the course of this 5 years. But throughout the game of Jedi Survivor, he slowly gains that hope back, and by the end of the game, he finds a nice middle ground. He's still kind of a fucked up murderous terrorist, but he's no longer a hopeless fucked up murderous terrorist. He does see that there is hope for the future and that there is a reason to fight other than his just own self-destructive sort of suicidal hopelessness. He is once again fighting for something greater than just himself. He is fighting for a better future. So the question becomes, how would this character do in the One Piece world? Well, he'd do really good at first, and then he'd do really bad. But right out the gate, Kestis has a lot of really cool shit that will help him in the One Piece universe. For one, he's got a fucking lightsaber. Like, that's one of the, if not the strongest weapon that exists within the One Piece world. It'll cut through pretty much every weapon that he clashes with easily. Like, it's not even going to be an issue for him. Throughout all these Blue and the vast majority of the first half of the Grand Line, before he starts running into people who can coat their weapons in hockey, nobody can defend against a lightsaber. He may run into a Shichibukai or a high-ranking Marine Forward Captain or something like that who can, but for the most part, the vast majority will not be able to deal with him. He also has all the normal Force powers that you would have. He doesn't have observation hockey, but Force users do have foresight, and he can see things coming before they do, regardless of not having that. He has telekinesis. He can literally just stop bullets fired at him in midair and toss them aside or chuck them back. He has insane, inhuman parkour skills because every video game character in the history of the universe has to be amazing parkour people. I don't know why. On top of having all of the normal Jedi powers that one would normally have, he actually has one that is very specific to him that not a whole lot of Jedis have. Basically, he has the ability to touch any item and then see the entire past of that item. This is going to be very useful for him when trying to locate the One Piece, because in case you're not aware, Oda did this really stupid story thing, probably the worst thing he's done in the One Piece story so far, where he made it so that there are these things called the poneglyphs, and in order to find the One Piece, you have to be able to read the poneglyphs, and if you can read the poneglyphs, they will point you in the right direction to find the One Piece. The reason why no one can find the One Piece is because all the people who can read the poneglyphs are extinct. There's only one person left that can read the poneglyphs and find it. There might be more. They hint at the fact that maybe this chick named Pudding might be able to find it, but for the most part, it's really just one chick, and she's on Luffy's crew, who's the main character. This is an absurdly stupid story point because it means that nobody could possibly challenge Luffy in finding the One Piece. He's the only person who's even capable of doing it because Robin is on his crew and she can read the poneglyphs that lead him to it. Nobody else can possibly do it. This sucks all of the tension out of the fucking story. We know it's just a matter of time before Luffy acquires it. And yes, that would be the case even if other characters were capable of finding the One Piece. But you have to at least have the illusion that somebody else can find it, the illusion that he's being challenged by somebody. But that illusion doesn't even exist here. We're just waiting for him to find it now. What a stupid fucking plot point to write into your story. Either way, Cal Kestis has a way around this because he doesn't have to read the poneglyphs. If he finds the poneglyph and he touches it, he will know everything that he needs to know about not only that poneglyph, but anything that's happened to that poneglyph in the entire history of its existence. Essentially, touching a poneglyph will give him the information that someone would normally need to read the poneglyph in order to acquire. This means that if Cal Kestis was in the One Piece universe, he would be one of only 2 people in the whole universe that can find the fucking One Piece. How annoying is that? Then you have all of his skill and intelligence. The fact that he was trained to fight by the Jedi from pretty much birth to become a warrior monk, so he's an incredibly skilled swordsman, and that he worked for several years for this salvaging company, tearing apart and putting back together all different kinds of machinery. This is going to make him significantly smarter than most people in the One Piece universe. He can build lightsabers. He built his own blaster. He has this little robot called BB-8 who follows him around, and when the robot breaks, he is capable of fixing it. This puts him as like the second or third most intelligent person in the entire One Piece universe, basically only being surpassed by Caesar or Vegapunk. Every single other character in the One Piece universe has intelligence and knowledge from like the fucking 1700s, from like the pirate era. That's right, there are cyborgs and robots in this pirate series where there are also old like 1700s ships and like people fight with cutlasses and shit. It's a weird series, guys. It's a really fucking weird series. These abilities are going to get Cal a lot farther than he otherwise would get. The problem is that at some point he's gonna hit a fucking wall. When he starts hitting the point of the Grand Line where everyone does have hockey and everyone can see into the future and everyone can defend against his lightsaber strikes, covering their weapons in hockey and shit, he's going to become far less useful. And this is where it gets kind of weird. Like, what version of the lightsaber should I use for this topic? Because if you do pre-Disney lightsabers, these motherfuckers could cut through pretty much anything. They basically had durability negation. They could go through massive, thick, alien metal-like walls that were several feet thick without really any real issues. They could cut through anything. But in Disney Star Wars, they're kind of all over the place. Sometimes they cut through shit like that, but then other times they'll like smack against a stormtrooper and bounce off like you're hitting them with a fucking wiffle ball bat, and it seems like they're barely do anything. They don't even seem like swords anymore. They're like hitting them with fucking light sticks. Like, I understand the stormtrooper armor is armor, and blaster bolts and shit are supposed to bounce off of it. That's the whole point of it being armor. But that armor was never capable of defending against lightsabers before. Lightsabers were like a step above everything else. That's what made lightsabers so amazing in the first place. They were like this all-powerful weapon that the strongest warriors in the universe used. The fuck is this shit? Why is it bouncing? It's made of pure heated light. Nothing should be bouncing here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna completely ignore fucking Disney Star Wars for a second and just use how they're shown in the game of Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. And in that game, they don't fucking bounce. They fucking slice through shit. They slice right through Stormtrooper armor like it's not even a big deal. He cuts people in half. He cuts arms off. It's awesome. He is very violent in these games. So would this very destructive lightsaber be able to go through Haki? I don't know. I don't think so. Because Haki is not like just making shit hard. You're literally wrapping something in your own willpower. It's solidified willpower. It should really depend on how strong the will of the user is. And considering that many of the characters in One Piece world have willpower that is strong enough to overcome that of literal armies of other people's willpower, I think it would be a little extreme to say that a lightsaber would just instantly cut through any form of Haki. The Haki in this series is pretty fucking broken and can defend against some insane levels of shit that we've never even seen lightsabers defend against. Basically, no matter how you slice it, Cal is going to run face first into a wall at some point. Whether he runs into people who are just physically more powerful than him, whether he runs into people who have Haki that he just can't match, or whatever it might be. I think he's going to get through the East Blue super easy, he's going to get through Paradise super easy, and then he's just not going to be able to deal once he gets to the New World. He just doesn't have the physical power, durability, or hacks to compete with a lot of those higher up characters. So how exactly will him running through the One Piece world actually go? Like, what will happen? Well, first off, there's no question this motherfucker's going to become a pirate. The man was a goddamn terrorist in the Star Wars universe, and he will very likely see the Marines as a very oppressive force the same way the Empire was, because in a lot of ways it is. He is very, very likely to become more of a terrorist in the One Piece world than a pirate even. And because of his willingness to do things like killing people, political assassinations, killing high up officials within the Marines, he will likely get a very, very large bounty on his head a lot faster than someone like Luffy did. This will make him a focus of the Marines and bounty hunters much faster than that of a lot of other characters. This will also make him getting through Paradise a hell of a lot harder. And while through doing this and dealing with these issues, he will get more powerful, he just doesn't get strong as quickly as One Piece characters do. Their ability to rise in power is insane. Like, over the course of one fight, they can double or even triple their level of power. That doesn't really happen in Star Wars. Over the course of 5 years, he got stronger, but it wasn't to the extent that he completely dwarfed his previous strength. I do think that he's going to make it to the halfway point. He's going to make it to Sabati Archipelago with all the other supernovas. And I think when he gets there, he's probably going to be the most wanted person there. Even more so than Eustace Kid. And the reason why he had his bounty was because he liked killing people. I think it's pretty easy to come to the assumption that Cal is going to be considered more of a threat by the Marines if he is specifically going after and targeting high-level Marine officers rather than just killing random people. However, after the attack on Sabati, when the Admiral shows up and they start fucking everybody up, if he doesn't die there, he will die very shortly after. The moment he goes to the New World, he's done. He may survive for a bit, fighting against some of the other people who are from Paradise, but really, he just doesn't stand a chance here. While most of these characters aren't faster than him, since he's capable of blocking blaster bolts that do fly in the lore at light speed, they will be physically stronger, have more durability, have more stamina to be able to fight longer, and have a lot of his same powers, but just better versions of them. The Jedi's future sight is cool and all, but it's nowhere near the Haki levels of future sight where they can literally look several moves ahead and know exactly what you're going to do. Many of the even mid-high tier characters in One Piece can straight up destroy whole islands with ease, and the high tiers are significantly above that. Whole countries can be destroyed by them. No Jedi in the canon is capable of doing that. Only the extended universe, which, you know, you can get mad at Disney, they fucking made not canon anymore. Maybe Cal will lessen the power gap between him and the higher up One Piece characters. It's just not going to be enough. The only way that I can see Cal Kestis actually surviving and getting through One Piece alive is if he is contacted in some way by Dragon, who is the revolutionary leader of the One Piece world, who is going to war with the Marines. He actually may reach out to see this Cal Kestis kid who is coming up and causing all sorts of problems for the world government by, you know, political assassinations and sabotage and all this kind of stuff, and offer for him to join. If Cal says yes, he may be able to survive under the wing of the Revolutionary Army. If he doesn't, and he decides to stay on his own, which is what he ends up doing in his own game, by the way, he does not join the revolutionaries. He goes and likes to do things on his own. He'll die. He can't survive in the One Piece world. It's just too powerful of a universe once you hit that New World section of the Grand Line. He can't win at that point. So his chances of survival aren't impossible, but his chances of actually claiming the One Piece absolutely are. Because in order to claim the One Piece, you do have to find the One Piece, but you also have to get through all of the most powerful beings in the universe, which he can't do. So no, he cannot become the Pirate King, but maybe he could survive if he joins the Revolutionary Army to fight against the Marines. universe. But even then, he will never become a top tier revolutionary. He will just be one of the lower tier characters within the Revolutionary Army. Next up, we have Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And this one's a little weird because Aang is not going to become a pirate. There is no universe where you can take Aang as a character, throw him in the One Piece world, and he decides to fucking go pirating. This is not a part of his character. Aang is a character that is all about peace and balance and bringing balance and peace to the world around him. It is his solemn duty that he was born with to make sure that the world is always at balance. And anytime that balance is disturbed, he has to go out of his way to fix it. In the Avatar universe, that peace was disturbed when the Fire Nation invaded all the other nations and the whole world was at war. In the One Piece universe, the pirate era is the thing that is causing the imbalance. The pirates are at war with the Marines at all times, and the pirates are at war with one another. If Aang shows up in this world and he feels the need to bring balance to it, he essentially has to shut down the pirate era and stop the fighting between the Marines and the pirates. That is what his goal will become in this new world, and that goal will be significantly more difficult than it was in Avatar. Because unlike in Avatar, where pretty much everybody was on board with the whole Avatar thing, everyone knows the Avatar is here to bring peace and balance. So when Aang showed up, it was like, hey, I'm the Avatar. Pretty much everybody was like, oh, cool, let's get behind this dude because he wants to bring balance to the... We all know this. Nobody in One Piece fucking knows Aang. Nobody gives a shit about who Aang is. And nobody is particularly spiritual in the One Piece world. They don't care that he's here to bring balance. They've all got like their own things that they want to do. So if he shows up, he's like, oh, I'm the Avatar, I'm here to bring peace and balance. They're just gonna look at him and be like, get the fuck out of here, you hippie. What are you doing? So it's really going to be an uphill battle for him to actually accomplish this goal. So we're going to be using the version of Aang that is in the current comic books. Not the old man that shows up in fucking Legend of Korra, but the one that's in the comic books that's around 15, 16 years old. He is considerably more powerful than his 12-year-old version that we saw at the end of the show. Like, for instance, without using the Avatar state, he was able to split open a canyon that went all the way around Ba Sing Se, like, really casually. Like, he didn't even really have to try all that hard. Really, all the characters are more powerful. I mean, Toph was able to hold up a mountain that collapsed on top of them all, and she just, like, held it there. It was like a cave collapse, but, like, the whole mountain concaved on top of them. And she just held that shit up for, like, a straight hour. The characters are more powerful, they're older, they're more mature, they speak a little bit differently, they've aged. You know, Aang is fumbling with the condom, trying to get it on before he's fucking Katara. All that great teenage shit that you remember when you were a youngin' for the first time experiencing your teenage years. You know, I just thought of something. Aang was 12 in the original series and Katara was 14. Now he's 16, which makes Katara 18, which means Katara is a fucking pedophile. Somebody put that cradle robbing bitch in chains. Okay, to be fair, Katara is not actually a pedophile. She's a hebiophile. Hebiophile is someone who is in the process of puberty but hasn't quite got through it yet. Pedophile is before puberty, so like under the age of 10 and 11 and stuff like that. Okay, fair enough. Problem is, you can't really explain the difference between a pedophile and a hebiophile. Like, no one does it. Because if you do take time out of your day to explain that to someone, it really just kind of makes you sound like a pedophile. So, yeah. Katara's a pedophile. So how will this slightly older Aang, who is experimenting with his sexuality, do in the One Piece universe? Well, in certain aspects, he's going to do really, really well. In other aspects, not so much. The ways that he's going to do really well in is he can fucking fly. Like, even if I don't give him Appa, which I probably shouldn't because that's like another character, he can literally fly anywhere he wants to go. He can get around the world considerably faster than anyone else in the One Piece world can, who has to go by fucking boats. If he ever runs into anything like Marines or pirates that are trying to kill him, he can escape very easily. He also has the power over all elements, which means any Logia user that he runs into, who people usually have such a hard time with at the beginning of the One Piece series, he won't really care all that much because he can literally control any element that they use at him. Now, not any, because some is like lights and darkness, and he's not gonna be able to control that. But ice, fire, lava, mud, sand, all that shit, that's not really gonna be a threat to him. He can control that shit all oftentimes a lot better than they can. Aang, in terms of straight up physicals, is incredibly powerful. He's capable of chucking mountains and rising the ocean levels. He can alter the weather and deflect fucking lightning back at people who fire it at him, which is another thing. He's fast enough to react to fucking lightning, which doesn't really mean all that much since lightning doesn't have a base speed. Lightning's speed is extremely random and it's dependent on things like humidity, particles in the air, wind direction. Lightning can be as slow as literally slow motion to where you can walk faster than it, or it can be damn near as fast as light if it's like passing through a copper wire or something like that. The speed varies drastically, but generally speaking, it's relatively fast. People like to say it's 1/3 the speed of light. That's not true. If it was that fast, you would not be able to see it. It would not even register to your eyes. It's generally considerably slower than that, but it is pretty fucking fast. He's capable of meditating and traveling into the spirit world and can actually spirit bend, which sadly won't really be that useful to him. As I said, the One Piece world is not a particularly spiritual world. The series doesn't really dabble into things like chi and chakra and the spirit being used as a weapon in the same way that the Avatar universe does. Like in the Avatar universe, Aang could straight up block a person's chakras and take their bending away. But what would that do if he blocked the chakras of someone in One Piece? Their powers aren't based on chakras. They don't even use chakras, so it wouldn't do anything. It's a cool power, but it's kind of a useless power in the One Piece world. Every tie or ability he has that is in some way related to the spirit world wouldn't really be relevant here in any way at all. So what exactly would happen if this little cougar lover entered the One Piece world? Much like Cal Kestis, he'd get through the first half pretty easily. He's just physically extremely powerful. He will have some issues because he's not as fast as a lot of One Piece characters, so I think his speed is going to be a problem. However, he is extremely mobile, so it might not be as big of a problem as it otherwise would be. Once again, it's once he gets to the new world that he's going to start running into some serious fucking problems. The introduction of Haki into the universe, both armament and observation, are going to give him more problems. Now, everyone knows everything he's going to do before he does it, and he has no way around that. They're also going to be physically durable enough to take his very, very powerful attacks in a way that anyone prior to the new world wouldn't be able to. However, I'm not 100% sure that they'll be able to beat him either because, like I said, he's extremely mobile, is capable of flying and dodging, and he's just a very hard person to hit. Even if they did have a massive speed advantage over him, he can just like fuck off. Like he doesn't have to stay there. Aang doesn't actually like fighting. He tries to avoid confrontation and violence wherever he can. In fact, I don't really see all that many scenarios where people like the Marines would even want to engage with him in violence. Remember, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Aang was being hunted by the Fire Nation solely because he was the Avatar. Nobody in the One Piece world cares that he's the Avatar. He would actually have to go out and look for a fight. But that is exactly what he's gonna have to do if he wants to bring balance to this world. He will have to fight the Yonkos and deal with the world government who are just obsessed with warring with each other. And when or if he comes to the conclusion that he has to go after the Yonko and go after the top tiers in the Marines to stop them from doing this, he's gonna get completely fucking trounced. He doesn't have the physical fighting ability in order to defeat any of them. He's too slow, and while his power level comes close-ish, it doesn't touch the top tiers like the Yonkos and the Admirals and stuff like that. He can't take them on in a physical fight. Now, one massive benefit that Aang has that I think a lot of people kind of ignore is that he's a genius. More specifically, he is a martial arts prodigy. So in case you're not aware of the Avatar lore, the arrows that Aang has painted on him, the tattoos that are permanent, those are only given to an air nomad when they master all forms of airbending and then invent their own. This usually takes a long time for someone to actually do. Aang did it before he was 12. And in case you're wondering, the airbending move that Aang invented was that little ball that he sits on, and like he sits on it and he floats around and he flies. Like, it's in the show, it said that he invented it, but that whole sitting on the ball, flying around thing, that's his technique. He came up with it. It didn't exist before him. And when he created that, he got his tattoo. Not only that, but Avatar: The Last Airbender occurs over the course of a single summer. And over the course of that one summer, he masters the basics of 3 vastly different fighting styles and entire martial arts philosophies: waterbending, earthbending, and firebending. Why is this important and why am I bringing this up? Because Aang should absolutely be able to learn and master Haki relatively quickly, even faster than Luffy did. Luffy is generally a very fast learner, but it took him a year and a half to understand the basics of Haki and then an extra 6 months to sort of get a little more advanced into it. Aang, by comparison, learned 3 whole styles in 3 months. If he at any point takes the time to actually learn Haki during his trip into the new world, he's gonna fucking learn it real fast. Maybe not as fast as he learned all the different bending styles, because he is a natural bender, but he's gonna learn it faster than Luffy did. Likely under a year. This is going to put him way closer to what he should be to start dealing with the Yonko and the Admirals properly. Do I think it'll be enough for him to beat them? No. And that's mainly because he's still too fucking slow. Even with the observation Haki, he's gonna get completely blitzed by the fastest characters, and he just won't be able to compete with their speed. But honestly, other than speed, he may actually be able to lessen the gap between his power level. It's really just the speed that's holding him back. That and his desire to not fight people. Aang sees most of the world as black and white, good and bad, right and wrong. One Piece is a lot more gray than that. The good guys aren't really good guys, and it's going to be a hell of a lot more complicated to bring peace to this world than it was for Avatar, where all you had to do was beat the Fire Lord. There's no one person you have to beat. You would essentially have to beat all of the Yonko, all of the high tier Marines, and then force an authoritarian dictatorship over the entire world and force them to get along, which Aang is not going to do, even if he had the power to actually do it, which he doesn't. Now, one argument that I know is going to come up in the comments section is that Aang has water bending, and the fact that he can control ocean water means that he will be able to fight against pretty much all the Devil Fruit users, and he essentially can use their kryptonite, so shouldn't this really help him out? And I don't really think so, and mainly the reason why that is because a version of water bending already exists in the One Piece world. It's called Fishman Karate. A lot of really powerful characters have Fishman Karate, and it doesn't help them against the top tiers of the universe because the power gap is just way too big. And a lot of the higher up, more powerful Devil Fruit users have ways around that type of fighting anyway. Like, for instance, Aokiji being able to freeze water the moment it touches him, or Kaido and Big Mom being able to fly, or certain characters like Shanks that straight up doesn't have a Devil Fruit and it won't affect him in any conceivable way. While I do believe waterbending will help Aang at first and help him against characters that are more evenly matched with himself, once he starts getting to those higher ups that are just considerably more powerful than him and are used to fighting against characters who can use water as a weapon, it's just not going to be as useful. Now, one very interesting scenario that I kind of like with this matchup is how Aang and Luffy will interact when they come into contact with each other. I think most people will get into these series and be under the assumption that these two characters would be friends and get along, and I disagree entirely. These two characters have completely opposite worldviews and philosophies on life. Basically, their goals are completely opposite from each other. Aang wants balance across the world. The thing he cares about the most is peace. Luffy would find peace to be rather boring. The thing that Luffy cares about more than anything is freedom. The freedom to do what he wants when he wants to do it. Here's the thing about Luffy. He's an incredibly selfish person. He is okay with committing tremendously evil acts as long as he gets what he wants. And the only reason why he's set up as the good guy in the series is because the world he lives in doesn't call him out on any of his shit like ever. There are several examples of this across the entire series. The most notable one is when he broke into the prison Impel Down and allowed over 200 murderers and rapists and criminals to escape that eventually went on to cause massive damage and destruction across the entirety of the Grand Line because he wanted to break his brother out of prison, who, by the way, is also a criminal. Because he wanted to break one person out, he caused untold suffering across the entirety of the Grand Line. Luffy has been known to befriend murderers, thieves, and all sorts of other terrible people and not really care about the crimes they commit as long as they don't personally do bad shit to him. And even then, a lot of times he forgives them. At the very beginning of the series, he befriends Gin during the Barati arc and allows Gin to leave, despite the fact that on their initial meeting, the first thing Gin does is shoot an innocent man in the head. But because Gin spares Sanji and they grow to kind of like each other over the course of that arc, he just lets Gin go, this known murderer that will then go on to murder more people. Luffy doesn't actually help anyone unless he has a personal connection to that person. He had to be talked into teaming up with someone like Crocodile, a guy who was going to kill an entire country's worth of people, not because he attempted mass murder, but because he harmed Vivi, who was Luffy's friend. And I can name example after example after example of this. Basically, Luffy's not really that good of a guy. He's a very selfish guy. And for somebody like Aang, who's going out of his way to stop the pirate era because it is causing an imbalance and suffering across the world, this is going to directly conflict with Luffy, who really all he wants to do is be a pirate and be the pirate king. He loves the pirate era. It's what he's devoted his entire life to doing, is to live his life as a pirate. He would absolutely find the world that Aang is trying to build as being boring. So no, I don't actually think that Aang and Luffy would get along. Now, I don't necessarily think that this means that they would come to blows super early on, because Aang is a very reasonable person who tries to avoid fighting at all times, and Luffy's not the type of person who attacks someone just for disagreeing with his lifestyle and his beliefs. But if Aang actually takes the actions necessary to stop the pirate era, this will conflict with Luffy, and this may cause them to come to blows. And if that happens, depending on when in the timeline it does, Aang's gonna fucking lose. If it happens at the beginning, he might actually win. But if it happens anytime after the time skip, or in the new world, or after Luffy gets hockey or any of that shit, he's gonna fucking lose big time. I don't necessarily think that this is how it's gonna end for Aang. I mean, it could end any number of ways for him. But, you know, it's still interesting to think about just how these characters interact, if they met, and if their world philosophies did actually come into contact with one another. Because, yeah, they're not really compatible. So, does Aang survive? For a very long time, but I do think that he'll eventually get killed by one of the higher-ups, just solely due to the fact that he's just not that fast, and he absolutely refuses to kill anybody. Unlike the Fire Lord, he can't just completely make them useless by taking all their powers away. So he actually does have to put them down. More than any of the other ones, I'd like to see what you guys think about this one in particular, because I do like this matchup. I think it's interesting, and I think there's a lot of different ways that this can go. But yeah, opening that one up to the floor. You guys take it away. Next up, we have Jin Kazama, and personality-wise, this is the hardest one to do because Jin don't have that much of a personality. So basically, ever since Jin's introduction into the Tekken series, his whole thing has been about getting revenge and fucking over people who fucked over him. Every single game. Tekken 3, he wanted to kill Ogre because Ogre killed his mom. Okay, fine. After that, he wanted revenge on Heihachi. After that, he wanted to take out his dad and get rid of the Devil Gene. By the end of Tekken 8, the Devil Gene is mostly dealt with, and now that he has nobody else to get vengeance on, I don't really know what he would do. Like, what is his character outside of fucking over people who fucked him over first? Like, what would he even do if he just got dropped into the One Piece world? I don't know. There really isn't that much of a character here. The series has not explored Jin's character outside of his relationship with the other Mishimas and Ogre. So for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna say he wants to be Pirate King, because I honestly don't know what he would do. They need to focus on exploring Jin, who he is outside of his relationship with other people. Like, I have no idea what Tekken 9 is going to be about. I don't know what they're going to have Jin do. I mean, obviously now he's got to deal with Reina, because Reina also has the Devil Gene, and she's going to do some fuck shit because she's not a good person. So I guess Jin doesn't actually have to have a character. He'll just keep doing what he's been doing before, but just now with this bitch. So if Jin did try to become the Pirate King, how well would that go for him? And yeah, it would go pretty well. It would go really well, actually. Just Jin did this. Yeah, I mean, look at that shit. He's fucking slaughtering most of the One Piece world. That is the One Piece world, essentially. He can blow up multiple continents with a single fucking laser fire. And maybe you might argue that Jin no longer has the Devil Gene. He got rid of it and it's just him. Okay, fair. But Jin defeated Devil Jin in Tekken 8 in a one-on-one fight without his own form. It was just him, human Jin, fighting Devil Jin, and he beat him. So at bare minimum, they are of comparable power to one another. He might not have the planet destroying fuck you laser, but I mean, he could punch this dude in the face and fuck him up. That's pretty good. Jin being thrown into the One Piece world would instantly make him one of the most powerful beings in this universe. He would very likely be physically superior to any of the Yonko or the top officials of the world government. He's just too fucking strong. And the crazy part is, this is not going to be the limit to his strength. Anybody who's played any amount of Tekken before knows that the power creep is real. Starting from Tekken 3, where Jin was was introduced to Tekken 8, not that much time has actually passed. And he's gone from being able to punch through rock to being able to fucking do this shit. And the whole universe has done this without any sort of training arc or anything. Characters just naturally get vastly more powerful in very short periods of time. So he's strong enough to compete with all the top tier dudes, and he's going to continuously get stronger and stronger as he fights through the new world without really even having to do anything. Now, how quickly he gets through the new world is entirely dependent on what version of Jin are we using. Are we using the current version at the end of 8 when he loses the devil gene and his angel form? Are we using the angel form? Are we using the devil gene form? It really depends. I mean, if we're using angel form, which is him at his strongest, he can essentially fly from the East Blue directly to Raftel in less than a second. He's capable of flying all the way up to space and back in barely any time at all. I mean, it's not going to take him long to do that. He can literally fly to any Yonko or top tier guy that he wants to, get into a fist fight with them, and he can pretty much take control of the entirety of the One Piece world in a very short period of time. So I feel like it would be more fair if we just did him currently when he's lost that form and he actually has to sail like everybody else. But again, because of the power creep, that does give him more of an advantage that he'll win once he actually gets to the Yonko. So I'm a bit conflicted of which one I should use. He doesn't have the angel or devil form, so he just has to sail there like normal, which also means he can't do this shit. Now, as far as him sailing through the Grand Line is gonna go, it's gonna go pretty fucking well in his favor. I mean, there really isn't gonna be anything that's capable of stopping him in a fist fight for a very, very long time, and he's going to continuously get stronger as he does it. Also, there's a very good chance that his attacks are going to be able to hurt Logias, as he's shown capable of fighting beings that could phase through shit and touching them without any real problem. But then the question becomes, is touching someone who could phase through walls the same thing as touching someone who could turn into an element? Probably not. Like, if you could punch a ghost or like Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, does that necessarily mean that you could punch a person who could turn into fire and harm them? I'm gonna say no, so Logias are still gonna be an issue for him throughout most of the Grand Line, and likely the only issue he's gonna have until he reaches the new world. But very much like Aang, Jin is a master martial artist who has been known to master whole martial art styles in a very short amount of time. 3 times in the series has he completely redone his entire fighting style and learned a whole new fighting style, just like for the fuck of it, for like story purposes and video game purposes. He has no issues with completely mastering whole new styles whenever he needs to. So him learning hockey is not going to be that big of a deal. Even if he can't touch Logias at the beginning of the series, over the course of traveling through the Grand Line and being introduced to this new ability called hockey, he will be able to learn and master it. And the fact that he's already a master at this thing called aura. So basically every Tekken character in the entire Tekken franchise has aura, which is like this inner energy that they can control. That's all the lightning and colorful shit that happens when they punch people. That's their aura. They can use this to enhance their strength greatly. They can use this to defend against attacks. They can use it to enhance their attacks. Actually, it's very similar to hockey in a lot of ways. The fact that Jin is already a master at using aura, as is every Tekken fighter in the entire series, means that it probably won't be that difficult for him to learn how to use hockey as well, since it's already such a similar power to that. And hockey will be able to enhance his already extremely impressive skills. So, question becomes, does he conquer the entire new world, beat all the Yonko, and take everything over? Probably not. And it's for the exact same reason that Aang couldn't do it. He's too fucking slow. The fact is that Jin's fastest feats are at absolute best relativistic speeds. They're not light speed. They are a percentage of light speed. And that's just too fucking slow for One Piece characters. I mean, Luffy at base is capable of reacting to and fighting against light speed characters even before he learns observation hockey. But after he learns observation hockey, he is capable of increasing his speed with things like his snake form and then eventually Gear 5, where he moves so fast that characters that were previously moving light speed can no longer even see him moving. He's not just slightly faster than light here. He is considerably faster than light. And every arc, he seems to get faster and faster. At this point, he's likely hundreds, if not thousands of times faster than light. And while Luffy is one of the faster characters in the series, he's not the fastest character in the series. Pretty much any Yonko or Admiral is capable of keeping up with him to some extent. So pretty much all the top tier is going to completely blitz the fuck out of Jin, and he's going to be in serious trouble. It doesn't really matter how hard you can hit when you're this much slower than the people you're fighting against. And again, he will increase in power, but will he increase in speed to that degree to where he can compete with these people? No, probably not. I think Jin will settle comfortably at around Yonko Commander under levels of power, and he won't be able to go any higher than that due to just how low his speed is. He just won't be able to compete with people. Even if he is capable of learning observation hockey, I just don't see him climbing over that wall. I'd say there's a chance he can, like if he can increase his power enough that his speed comes at least close to theirs, plus having the observation hockey on top of it to make up for the lack of speed, maybe he might be able to take on the Yonkos and stuff like that and actually beat everybody and become the new Pirate King. Possibly. But to me, that just seems like a whole lot of ifs. But for any Tekken fans out there, just know that if I gave him the angel / devil form, yeah, he'd be able to just flap into space and then nuke an entire island and it'd be fine. Like he'd be able to take over the entire planet essentially. So in his current form, he may, but with extreme levels of difficulty, and in his devil / angel form, he would most certainly. He wouldn't find the One Piece because he can't read the fucking poneglyphs, but I feel like if you can nuke the surface of the planet, destroying several countries in a single attack, you know, they might just drop the rule about finding the fucking treasure. You know, like even if someone does go out and find the treasure and claims that they're king, can you really be king when there's a guy out there just nuking the whole planet? Probably not. You might have to change the ruling a little bit. Last up, we have Skaar, Son of Hulk from Marvel Comics, and probably looking at me a little weird, being like, this is a stupid matchup. Obviously, Skaar is gonna fucking wreck. He's got the powers of the Hulk. This is dumb. Well, no. It actually depends on how you scale Marvel, really. Because you can't scale Marvel by just looking across the entire universe, because the entire universe is inconsistent as fuck. Like, just to give you an example, there's a Marvel comic where Wolverine fights Thor. Thor states directly that he cannot keep up with Wolverine. Wolverine is too agile and too fast for him to even lay a finger on him. That same version of Thor has comics where he reacts to massively faster than light attacks. He has fought against Silver Surfer, Galactus, all sorts of cosmic beings who have been shown reacting to massively faster than light abilities. Wolverine will go on to equally fight against characters like Captain America, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Moon Knight, all sorts of street level heroes. So what exactly does this mean? That every single street level hero throughout all of Marvel scales to the fastest characters within Marvel? Because this character fought this character that fought this character that can move faster than time itself? No, it's fucking stupid. You can't scale Marvel that way. Each individual writer has their own ideas about how fast characters are, how strong characters are, what characters can do. And you can only take feats from a single character from a single storyline. Once a new writer comes in, a new storyline comes in, all the rules are fucking changed. This is why I don't like reading Marvel comics through as if it's all one story. You have to read individual arcs written by individual writers. You cannot scale it any other way. It's not possible. So, how am I gonna do Skaar? Well, the version of Skaar we're gonna talk about is from the guy who initially created Skaar when he appeared in Skaar, Son of Hulk in the Greg Pak run of the Hulk. Those feats across that storyline are the most consistent to what he is capable of, and everything that came after that was just fucking random. So what is this version of Skaar capable of? Well, let's go on to Versus Battle Wiki and see what they have. Fucking universal why? What the, when has Skaar ever done anything what? What do you mean? No! These are fucking wrong! First off, yes, it is stated that Skaar does have the potential strength of his father. He has never once shown that strength. Skaar has defeated a very weak, shitty, savage Hulk. When he tried to fight Green Skaar, who is his actual father, by the way, the guy I've talked to previously who's been able to fight Zeus and deal with Galactus and all that kind of crazy stuff, he got fucking one-shotted. He doesn't stand a chance against that version of Hulk. Just because his potential strength can be that high. You wanna know how strong Skaar is? The comic gives you a very, very clear indication of exactly how powerful he is. At one point in the comics, during that initial run, very shortly after the introduction of Skaar, Skaar gets into a fight with Hulk. During that fight, Skaar uses the old power, I'll explain what that is in a little bit, to absorb all of the energy of planet Earth into himself and then release it in a single punch into the chest of the Hulk. Right before he does that, a scientist who is keeping track of the fight straight up says with his own mouth that Skaar is about to release 100 trillion tons of force into the chest of the Hulk. This is directly stated. And this is after Skaar gets a massive power up by absorbing the energy of Earth. So if after that massive buff, he can do 100 trillion tons of force, clearly he's not universal. How much is 100 trillion tons of force? Well, that's 100 teratons, which according to Versus Battle Wiki, who's the one who says that it's fucking universal plus, is the very bare minimum of large country level. It's literally the lowest you can be before you're at regular country level. This punch is so powerful that it knocks Hulk out of the current state they're in, and he flies to the other side of the United States. It's a very powerful punch. It's very impressive, very awesome. He is not a universal character. It's fucking retarded to even make that claim. I know people like to wank Marvel and DC to just beyond levels of ridiculousness, but like, how could you possibly justify a universal plus fucking power level for Skaar? He has no such feats. They tried to give Skaar an equivalent level of speed to Silver Surfer, who's like the fastest character in all of Marvel because they tussled once for a bit. Bro, Silver Surfer literally can control time. He doesn't do that here. And he was clearly not trying to kill Skaar. Stop doing this shit. It's annoying. But to be fair, many of the people that argue for these comic book characters do not actually read comic books and do not understand how the rules work. So I'll give them a little bit of slack here. Like, the general inconsistency of Marvel and DC Comics as a whole and the constant flip-flopping between writers does make it a little confusing if you're taking this sort of stuff out of context. I mean, just for example, Devil Hulk is one of the strongest Hulks we've ever seen. And the writer of the Immortal Hulk storyline, who reintroduced Devil Hulk into the series, directly stated that Devil Hulk was not capable of destroying the planet like Green Skaar was. Devil Hulk one-shot the fuck out of Thor, fucking his whole face up with a single punch, despite the fact that in a Thor comic that came out very shortly before the Immortal Hulk storyline, that wasn't written by Al Ewing, shows Thor straight up destroy a planet with a single hit. These writers just don't talk to each other. There's no flow here. They all just have their own ideas of how strong everybody is. So I get it. It's fucking confusing. So listen, if you're not a comic book reader or not an avid comic book reader and you don't follow this shit over the course of years or decades, and someone tries to tell you that a particular character is this speed or this strength, just take that shit with a grain of salt, because most likely he's full of fucking shit. So with all my bitching out the way, exactly how well would Skaar do in the One Piece universe? And the truth is, One Piece just doesn't stand a fucking chance. Yes, it's true, large country level is not necessarily dwarfing the strength of the Yonkos and the Admirals and things like that, but Skaar just has so many fucking broken ass powers. And that's without including the old power, because I just thought about this, he's not gonna be able to use it. So the old power exists within Marvel, and it's basically, he can absorb the energy of planets, he can control Earth, not like the planet Earth, but just like Earth, dirt and rocks and shit within planets. He can actually become reborn from the Earth around him, so if he dies, he'll just rise again somewhere on the planet, wherever he wants to, as like this rock being, and then it will turn into who he was before, like a real being. It's kind of crazy. And it just gives a bunch of crazy ass broken powers. But all those powers are tied to the old power, which only exists in the Marvel universe, and it was created by Sakarians who then spread it around the multiverse, so it's abundant there. It doesn't exist in One Piece, so none of his old powers are actually going to work. But I mean, Skaar is still a fucking Hulk. He still has all of the crazy Hulk powers. He will still get stronger as he gets angrier. He will still resurrect from the dead and regenerate from getting blown into pieces. He still has a very high level of adaptation that is superior to that of someone like Doomsday. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this, but Hulk has insane levels of adaptive ability. At one point, he gets thrown in the water and he fucking grows gills. It takes literally seconds for a Hulk to adapt to something that he's not used to. This is why Hulks have so many goddamn powers. Skaar is a trained hand-to-hand combatant, weapons expert, and strategic genius that was trained by the greatest warriors in the entire Marvel universe that live on Skaar. He then later came to Earth and was further trained by his father, Green Skaar, also a great warrior and tactician, as well as fucking Wolverine. Skaar in the One Piece universe would be one of the greatest fighters that exists there. He would only really easily be matched by like Mihawk and Roronoa Zoro and characters of that nature. Skaar has been able to defeat characters significantly more powerful than him, like the Juggernaut, by outthinking them. Like, for instance, when he fought the Juggernaut, he realized that the Juggernaut's powers are based on his connection to the ground. Like, when the Juggernaut starts moving, you can never stop him. So he just fought him in the air. And without the Juggernaut being able to put his foot on the ground to be unstoppable, he was basically like a normal dude. And Skaar could fight him on par. Then eventually he just chucked his ass into space. Again, in that fight, it is shown that Skaar is nowhere near the same strength as Juggernaut. He literally just beat him by outthinking him. That's not even mentioning things like how every Hulk has limitless endurance and cannot get tired ever, and how their strength will just keep rising infinitely as long as they keep taking damage or getting angrier. All of this is gonna make Skaar basically unfucking defeatable in the One Piece universe. Even if when he gets there all the top tiers are physically stronger and faster than him, it's not going to last. They won't be able to put him down or even knock him out for a couple of minutes, because you can literally smash his fucking head in and he'll just grow it back. Like all the other Hulks, Skaar controls the entrance to hell and can just decide not to go if he doesn't want to. Then you have all the crazy magical Hulk shit where their punches can actually affect space and time and things like that. And no, it's not universal or some bullshit, okay? It's not. It's a form of manipulation. Essentially, a Hulk's attack, because of its connection to the below place, is capable of affecting physics in a very strange way. Like, for instance, Hulk was shown being able to punch his way out of a black hole, despite the fact that it shouldn't be possible for a character to get out of a black hole. It's a weird sort of form of physics manipulation or reality manipulation, and it's something that all Hulks have the ability to do. To be honest with you, Skaar is the first character that I don't think even really needs to learn hockey. While he's not going to be able to fight Logias because they're made out of certain elements, he can actually most likely adapt an ability that will allow him to deal with all of the enemies that he's fighting that are Logia. And even if he doesn't, he could literally just chuck them into space. Like, break a piece of the ground that they're standing on and just chuck them. Boom! You just won the fucking fight. It would be insanely funny to see some of the Yonko and some of the high tier world government officials fighting Skaar, thinking that he's like this weak dude who's like nowhere near them in terms of tier, and then just throughout the fight, them just being baffled by the fact that, oh, this dude's growing his head back and fucking like increasing his speed and strength to ridiculous. Like, what? How the fuck do you stop this thing? He'd just be like this unstoppable freight train that kind of starts off pretty slow, but then just starts speeding up to where he just completely dwarfs everybody else in power given enough time. The only real downside for this whole thing is the downside for pretty much everybody. He can't read the fucking poneglyphs, and he has no power to allow him to read the fucking poneglyphs. So he can't actually become the Pirate King. But again, I feel like it's a kind of a weird thing. The whole rule of acquiring the One Piece and only if you acquire the One Piece can you become the Pirate King is a very strange rule. Because in One Piece, I guess it sort of works. Like, the person who gets the treasure is just going to be the strongest character in the entire universe. But that's really just kind of plot convenience. There's no real reason why that's the case. I mean, if Luffy has Robin on his crew and he gets all the way to the One Piece and finds it, he will probably happen to be the strongest, but there's nothing saying that like Eustace Kid or Law or Shanks can't be significantly stronger than him and just not claim the One Piece first. Like, Skaar could surpass every single person on the planet and be the most powerful character with the biggest army, most islands under his command, and all that good shit, and just not be able to find the One Piece because he can't read the poneglyphs. So he can't actually be the Pirate King. But then this little shit Luffy, who's nowhere near his level of power at this point, just finds it and he's like, oh, well, now I'm the Pirate King. Skaar could just be like, no, you're nowhere near me in power. I adapted to your stupid Looney Tune bullshit. What the fuck is his participation trophy horse shit? Well, luckily for Luffy, I don't actually think Skaar is gonna really care that much about who's the Pirate King. He kind of likes just doing his own thing. As long as he's free to do whatever he wants, him and Luffy will probably get along just fine. He's not the type of character to care about titles and things like that. He will very likely become a Yonko. He will very likely completely throttle anyone who tries to stand up against him. And he'll just sort of enjoy living on this planet, fighting people he wants to fight, going to war with the world government every once in a while, sparring with Luffy while, you know, Luffy's Pirate King and he's Yonko and they're just like chilling. It'll really be a pretty good time. Skaar's a pretty chill guy, but in several ways, he does kind of break the power level of the universe. But anyway, that's going to be all from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?